Hello folks, Phil Galler, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com and we'll take a look at them after round 1. This deck list comes to us from Isaac J, at least the main deck does, who wanted to see some of the new Brothers War cards in Soldier Stompy. So maybe, I don't know, a month or two ago, I played with a Soldier Stompy deck list. I think I got a 5-0 with it. I had a very good run with it, and Valiant Veteran proved itself to be stronger than I thought it would. I thought that I would never activate its ability where you can exile it from your graveyard to put a +1/+1 counter on your soldiers, and I was just wrong. The card was impressive as an early game aggressive threat that pumped your other creatures, and it was an endgame mana sink. Now, there is a lot of exile-based removal in Legacy, which is why I was kind of a little lukewarm on it, and even some of the sweepers like Terminus aren't going to send your creatures to your graveyard, but I was pleasantly surprised. Now we're going to try out 2 more cards. The first is Skystrike Officer. Well, actually, I guess 3. When this attacks, you get a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token, which can be pumped by things like your lords, and you can tap 3 untapped soldiers you control to draw a card. If we have another thing that might give us a very large number of soldiers, we could get a potent draw engine as well as go wide of a lot of strategies very quickly. Myrel's Shield of Argive is a great way to make sure your opponents aren't going to mess with you during your turn, and it can also spiral out of control. The other new thing that we're going to be trying out here is Harbin Vanguard Aviator, which is a 3/2 flyer, and if you can attack with 5 or more soldiers, it also gives you an Anthem effect and gives all of your things flying, which in Legacy is often pretty close to unblockable. There's also a new land that we'll be trying out, and a lot of times these, like, sort of check land things don't really make the bar for playability in Legacy, but I think we're going to give this one a go. So, as Fortified Beachhead, not when, as, enters the battlefield, you can reveal a soldier from your hand. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you revealed a soldier card this way, and this is the important part that actually makes it playable, or control a soldier. So, given that, like, we are playing a deck that is very strongly on point with a creature theme, we are either going to have a soldier in hand or a soldier on the battlefield the vast majority of the time, making this pretty close to a second Tundra for this deck list. And it's a Tundra with some upside, as for 5 mana and tapping this, we can also give our soldiers +1/+1 until the end of turn. So there's a lot of synergy in the ability to kind of go wide and pump some creature tokens here. And we have a couple different axes that we can attack from. Like, we're probably not going to be playing the Hate Bear game most of the time. Isaac has opted not to play Chalice of the Void in this deck list, which is probably okay given where Legacy is at right now. Chalice is at a relative low point, and some of the initiative decks are even dropping it, especially the red-white versions. I have a giant article about the initiative on my Patreon and in my Discord if you're interested in that, but that's not really the point of this video. But we're more frequently going to be trying to just cheat mana with Preeminent Captain. If Preeminent Captain attacks and we get to, like, cheat 3, 4, or sometimes even more mana worth of soldiers onto the battlefield, we're probably going to be in a good place overall. As far as deck building here, one thing that I'm very unsure about is I'm unsure whether or not we should have kept some of the modal, like, double-faced land cards in the deck list. Like, they're very good with Chrome Mox. I played them in my previous version. I'm just not sure how good the basic lands are without the ability to fetch for them. I definitely want some because the initiative is everywhere right now. I wonder if, like, it should be like 1 plains, 1 island, and then like 2 of these double-faced cards so that, like, I have more Chrome Mox imprint targets that aren't my creatures. But the math on that becomes a little weirder when, like, with Chrome Mox, sometimes you are going to need to get blue mana, and, like, the 1-color lands don't imprint for that anyway. So I'm gonna play the mana base as it was submitted. I think it's fine as is. As far as the sideboard goes, I had to make some choices. So if we're not playing if we're not playing Chalice of the Void in game 1, I have to do something against combo in game 2. But we also have the elephant in the room, which is the initiative deck right now, right? And I think it's more important to gear against the initiative than it is to gear against combo, as crazy as that is to say. So I've made some choices. So for the initiative matchups, we have a set of Swords to Plowshares as well as a couple of Empty Shrine Kanushi. And while this isn't a soldier, it does have protection from the colors of permanents you control. In other words, this is going to have pro-white all of the time and just be a way to keep taking the initiative back. And as long as our initiative opponent isn't holding the initiative, we can attempt to kind of like remove their creatures with Brutal Cathar and Palace Jailer, and otherwise like try to do the thing that our deck is designed to do. Then versus the control decks, we've got some Armageddon and the functional Armageddon Ravages of War, so that we can blow up their lands and kind of let our late game inevitability take over. And the only thing that we're doing against combo is Leyline of the Void. So if we get paired against, you know, your Doomsday decks, your Storm decks, we're going to be a little lighter than normal and less equipped to deal with them. And maybe that means we're supposed to just play Chalice in game one, but let's kind of see how this plays out. Not playing Chalice makes it so that we can play cards like these in Esper Sentinel, and that may end up being better overall. Alright, I've talked for a long time. Let's get into the matches. If you're new here, please consider subscribing if you like what you see, and if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Okay, this is a double Chrome Mox hand that can play Athalia on turn 1 into this on turn 2. I would be dropping a Thalia and a Palace Jailer in order to do this, and then with any land drop I have Brutal Cathar. I don't know that it is worth effectively mulliganing twice to just play Athalia out on turn 1, so I'm going to go ahead and ship this one. This is a slower but more stable hand. I will be keeping this one, probably pitching the Palace Jailer, as it's the thing that is going to happen latest in the game. Alright, we are probably playing against Blue-Red Delver. Are you cracking your bauble immediately? Yes. So we know they don't have Dragon Rage Channeler in hand right now because they didn't play that out prior to a bauble. Other than that, I don't have a lot of information as of right now. Captain of the Watch, not really a great draw on the current board. But Esper Sentinel may kind of force my opponent to play off of curve or end up giving me a card at some point, so I don't mind this. Sure. We're a little light on removal in game 1. We've got like 6 removal spells, so I'm going to be a little worried about a Dragon Rage Channeler. Or sorry, not a Dragon Rage Channeler, Murktide Regent just kind of coming in early. See how my opponent plays this out here. They might just like main phase Lightning Bolt me, pay the tax, and move on. Oh, Grixis Delver? Grixis Control with Bauble? Interesting. Ooh, love that draw. I think we're just going to try to put the squeeze on my opponent's resources here. Now, like, there's 2 different taxes on my opponent's spells. My opponent is probably testing something that they think is going to be good versus initiative. Like Death Touching, Evasive Bodies. See where they're coming from. My opponent has done an interesting play of Force of Willing, pitching an Expressive Iteration, which is going to draw me a... Yeah. Alright. So the unfortunate thing here is that I don't have a full read on what exactly my opponent is doing so that I can sideboard most optimally, because I've only seen a handful of cards. The Bauble in particular makes me think that Dragon Rage Channeler is in the deck list, which probably implies that other aggressive threats are as well, and I want Swords to Plowshares, but like I very much could be wrong, and this could be a Grixis control deck. So like, if I'm playing against a Delver deck, I'm considering these 8 cards. And if I'm playing against a control deck, I want these cards. So I'm not sure exactly where that's going to leave me in terms of sideboarding. The Thar Commando is likely to be a pretty weak card regardless. I will probably play Swords to Plowshares in those slots. From there, I'm not exactly sure how much I want to commit. Like, I don't think I'm comfortable committing to Leyline of the Void. I might be comfortable committing to the entire set of Swords to Plowshares. This random 3/2 flyer seems a lot less good in the in the world of Baleful Strix, so I think I'm gonna pull in the full playset of Swords to Plowshares and call that good for sideboarding. This hand's gonna be a keep. I'm a little unsure whether or not I want to play Cavern of Souls out on turn 1 because of a potential opposing Wasteland. But uncounterable, all of my spells all game does sound cool if my opponent doesn't have Wasteland. I don't know that I'm using that Chrome Mox. Go Cavern. Not 100% sure that this is right. But, like, given that I don't have the full read on whether my opponent is a full-on Delver deck or a control deck, I think this is okay. This is absolutely a bad time to do that. So I'm still in my main phase here, so like I could draw another Esper Sentinel and like Chrome Mox it into play or something. That's very sloppy from my opponent. Like between that and the Force of Will play at the tail end of last game, I'm gonna kind of assume that my opponent is new to Legacy. Okay, no Wasteland. And no threat. So if I play this one this turn, it can just get Lightning Bolted, which is a little bit awkward. But I don't think correct to just throw this onto the board naked either, and I don't think I want to Chrome Mox to just play this out immediately. So I think I still will go with this. Just cause my opponent to expend the Lightning Bolt and then play Myrel into Valiant Veteran. Valiant Veteran will bump up the soldier tokens that I'm going to get. Alright. It's a plan. Okay, we are going to eat a removal spell on my main phase. Oh no. Okay, Fatal Push is fine. Like, my opponent using these Fatal Pushes so that they have fewer targets, fewer spells that answer my Myrel is very good for me. EI is fine. After seeing the Fatal Push here, my, like, internal meter is pointing more towards this being a control deck than a Delver deck. Underground Sea is fine. Oh? Buried Alive? Doomsday. Okay, this has the upside that I actually get to see my opponent's deck. Okay. So it's like a Grixis control deck that has a Doomsday kill in it. Okay, no Lightning Bolts to worry about, although there is a Pyroclasm. I think I'm probably going to lose to the Doomsday before I can clock my opponent out, but it is going to be really close. Really, really close. I imagine they're a little bottlenecked on blue mana. And if I draw a Swords to Plowshares specifically, I might be able to disrupt this. Alright. So notably, there's not Force of Wills in this configuration as of right now. So there's that. So we'll see how well my opponent built their Doomsday pile. Alright, that's Baleful Strix. 2 cards remaining. They can go ahead and Thassa's Oracle here. Oh, they're just Baleful Strixing again. Sure, and then they'll Thassa's Oracle next turn. Okay, that is reasonable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, so I can do both of these. I guess I will. I'm going to play one of these counterably, just to kind of see if my opponent randomly has a daze or something. Play out the other one, and then I guess I attack with this, make a bunch of soldiers, let a Baleful Strix die. Oh man, I fucked up. I didn't fuck up. Yeah, because they're going Hellbent. I can like tap these, draw a card. That doesn't get me anywhere special. Alright, I mean, let's see the Thassa's Oracle. Alright, there it is. My opponent has done this with no cards remaining in library, so that will get there. Go ahead and take a snip here of the bulk of my opponent's deck list, just in case I need to refer back to it. So it's kind of tough to deal with Doomsday. And I'm in this weird spot where I have to respect Murktide Regent while also respecting this Doomsday kill. I'm not very good at interacting with a Doomsday, but blowing up my opponent's lands is probably really good. I'm extremely unsure how I want to sideboard. It may just be that I decrease my ability to do something cute with Preeminent Captain to not lose to Murktide Regent by keeping the highest possible density of removal spells, while also keeping these to blow up my opponent's lands And if I blow up my opponent's lands, I can probably close out the game pretty easily. Preeminent Captain actually might be better than one more Skystrike Officer. Again, just because like these line up poorly versus Strix. Those line up poorly versus Strix. Am I supposed to do this over this? Sure. This does not have enough mana. I might still just keep this. This is a lot of card draw versus just like the cantrippy controlling side of the opposing deck. It has a removal spell, I'm not dead to a Murktide, and with any one land, of which I have 21 hits and probably multiple draws, like, this is very reasonable. This is a little risky. I think I like this better than a 5. Let's see how it plays out. Definitely worried. I don't know, maybe I can kind of lean into the fact that my opponent has made some undisciplined decisions and do some cool stuff. Or Doomsday could happen immediately. There's another Swords. Going up to 5 mana. Sure. Alright. Alright, my opponent has resolved their Doomsday pile. At a glance, it looks like it's probably a Strix-based pile again. So I have missed on my land drop, meaning that I can't play Thalia, which is very unfortunate. I should have played Asper Sentinel. That was stupid. Sorry, my opponent took so long on their Doomsday pile that, like, I was absolutely just screwing around on my phone. So the reason that I just kind of auto-passed the turn is if I thought they were going to do a, like, Strix-based pile, I wanted to hold up Swords to Plowshares in case they didn't go for the win immediately. So I am going to continue to hold up Swords to Plowshares here, in case I just go for it this turn. There's a land drop. They're not going for it, in which case I believe I have lost. I'll still hold up a Swords, but it's not happening. I will play out that Esper Sentinel. And there is the Thassa's Oracle. I am going to Swords to Plowshare it to see if my opponent concedes randomly. They didn't. Alright, that's unfortunate. GG's. We're not really set up to beat a deck that can play Doomsday. I think if I had somehow gotten the read that my opponent had a Doomsday finish while in Game 2, like after Game 1, I could have boarded differently and had a better shot at winning. Like if I had the Armageddons in Game 2, like maybe I can get there. But the juke got us. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and they've got some really fun things in the works. In addition to being one of the premier decklist sites out there, they are also going to become a social media website as well. Now, this isn't going to replace Twitter, and this is still something that's in development. It's not finished, there's no timeline for when exactly this is going to be released, but at some point, you'll be able to use Moxfield as a place to talk about Magic the Gathering. This is a mock-up, and keep an eye on Moxfield. They're doing big things. I have a very strange opening hand here. I have multiple Cavernous Souls. I can make some creatures uncounterable. I have enough lands to cast my spells. I don't have a piece of acceleration here, and like Ancient Tomb or Chrome Mox is going to make the best hands that this deck has to offer. Turn 2 Cathar Commando is not exciting. Remnant Captain into Captain of the Watch is, but I don't know if this hand is a trap in keeping it. I think I'm going to keep on the draw as finding a Chrome Mox, an Ancient Tomb, or an Esper Sentinel. All of those draws make this hand extremely good instead of just unimpressive but solid. I don't want to be playing against combo with this hand, but like I don't want to be playing against combo with this deck, so like I guess that's a thing. Elves? Lands? Okay. Or something lands adjacent may be more accurate. Maybe Uro lands. I will be super soft to like a wasteland here. Let's go ahead and just play this tapped here. Not to give my opponent the information. My opponent doesn't have a lot of cards in hand. Oh shit. Oh shit. Danger. Danger. That buys a turn. That buys a turn. Okay, we have outs. We absolutely have outs. So I need to play this out as a blocker. Block. And then rip my 3 mana Sorcery Speed answer. my exile creature that I'm just blanking on. Brutal Cathar. There we go. Otherwise, I can try to do this thing where I throw flyers into my opponent's Merit Lodge until something changes. But, it ain't looking great as of right now. Now, like, luckily, thinking ahead to the post-sideboard games, like, we have a lot of things that are going to be, like, reasonable to good here. Thank you, Harbin. Your service has been appreciated. Get mowed down by Merit Lodge. And let's see if there's a follow-up play. Oh, shit. That's Merit Lodge forever. I think I'm mostly comfortable conceding the game at this point. Like, I just don't have the resources to beat this. I'm gonna struggle for a minute or two here. Mostly just to see more cards in my opponent's deck list. Like, I can mostly imagine what sort of stuff is going to be there, right? But I would like to confirm that something like Treasure Hunt or like the Winding Ways are in the deck list before I concede. Yes, thank you. Wait, crop rotationing. Okay, now we're drawing a card. Alright. Seiju is expected. I assume we're just going to loam all three of those lands back. Yep. Life's bad. Like, exploration plus life from the loam, plus both combo pieces early, is super brutal here. That was a good mulligan for my opponent. And now I am effectively dead, as anything that I play here doesn't fly to block that, and I am at 20 life, so GG's. So the Swords of Plowshares are coming in, and then kind of the question is, what am I doing with the remaining slots? Life from the Loam is stopped by Leyline of the Void, but the Winding Way and the essentially 8 copies of Winding Way that they are going to play aren't going to be. I think I have to keep all of my removal spells for trying to punch through Merit Lodge. I also have, like, Field of the Dead to worry about as the game goes long, so I probably want Armageddon. Like, my goal is get ahead on board, try to blow up all my opponent's lands, and kill my opponent before they can rebuild, and I'll play some degree of protection versus Merit Lodge. I think I can afford to sideboard 7 cards. I don't think I'm going to go the full 11. I think this is just going to lead me in a trap direction, where I've just decreased my ability to win the game too much. I think Thalia is coming out if I'm going to bring in some expensive cards. I think that's my starting point. From there, the last 3 slots are trickier. I can't board out the flyers, I don't think. The evasion's good. I don't think Cathar Commando comes out, so that I can get rid of Explorations or Urza Sagas if my opponent is playing that, or Mana Bond. That probably means Captain of the Watch goes. Galar is a little slow here despite being an out to a Merit Lodge. Or maybe I go down 1 Esper Sentinel. Not the most impressive card here. My opponent's not going to play too many cards that trigger it. Like, there's some, but my opponent is hoping to get out of the range where attacks matters pretty quickly. How is this hand? It's not the greatest curve in the world. It starts on an Esper Sentinel. Esper Sentinel into this is reasonable. With any 1 land drop, this is fine. The mana's a little awkward here. I think I'm going to ship this one. This is a more aggressive hand. I'm going to keep it. And now I have to make a choice between keeping Brutal Cathar, which can keep the pressure up, or keeping Swords to Plowshares, which can answer a Merit Lodge at instant speed. I think it's going to be more important to answer something at instant speed, and given the creature density of my deck list, I'll just kind of call this good. It's possible with my Caracas that I don't need to keep the Swords to Plowshares, but I am playing against the Wasteland deck, and I don't know that I want to count on the Caracas just being there forever. Alright, very sort of average start from my opponent here. I'm going to drop this, and try to just be good old-fashioned beatdown deck with 2 pieces of disruption. Alright, we're seeing an end of turn fetch. Good old-fashioned stomping grounds. Again, playing that is an indication of just wanting cards with different names for the purposes of Field of the Dead. Alright. This is where things start to get scary. So my opponent can go land drop, and then play some sort of Winding Way card. Okay, they are doing the Ghost Quarter check. I will pass that check. There's just a regular land drop. Okay, do I want to play Skystrike Officer this turn? Or another Valiant Veteran? I think I want to play Skystrike Officer this turn while it's safer for me to just tap out. It means I miss 1 point of damage this turn, but I will gain that up in... I will more than make up for that in the turns that follow. I will also have an onboard flyer, which is nice. And, see how scary my opponent can make things for me here. Am I about to get, like, pyroblasted? Wow. I am. Huh. Didn't really expect that. I don't know whether or not that is good or bad from my opponent's, like, boarding perspective. Alright, we are in Merit Lodge could be approaching at any moment zone. Alright, there is the mana bond. My opponent may not have Merit Lodge. Or sorry, my opponent may not have Field of the Dead immediately, since they did just, like, naturally play out some land drops here. Alright. So I will just kind of hold up my safest mana configuration here, which is the basic plains. And we are going to attempt to just race my opponent. There's a good chance that I have them on a 2-turn clock between them fetching or me drawing another creature next turn. Cathar Commando would be a very interesting draw on my end, because like I could think about taking this out. But if my opponent's just naturally playing their land drops, I don't quite have to worry about the mana bond Field of the Dead combo as much. Alright, I'll play this out post-combat. Let's get in there. Opponent's at 7, and I am presenting lethal. I'm also presenting lethal with 2 layers of protection for a Merit Lodge. Oh shit, this is a legend. I mean, it has a name, of course it's a legend. And it's not like I'm not going to play it out, like, given that I don't have anything else to do with my mana. Alright, Catacombs, Ghost Quarter, Heath, that's all fine. I kind of expect that my opponent will attempt to take out my Caracas here. Oh. Sure. Why I play basic lands, by the way. They are good. See if they are going for Mana Bond. They're not going for Mana Bond. Yep. Let's go to combat. Put an attack in. Put my opponent to 1. And I do have to take a second to think about whether or not it's better for me to play this Armageddon or not. The problem is that if I play this Armageddon and my opponent randomly has a Tabernacle, I basically lose the game for making that decision. Unless I Chrome Mox imprint Harbin? Then I can still win through a Tabernacle. I couldn't win through Tabernacle plus Maze of Ith. I know most of my opponent's hand. That's pretty unlikely to happen. Yeah. Do it. Let's get in. And then I will go ahead and Chrome Mox. Imprint the Harbin. I have both of my colors of mana. We got 2 different lethal threats on board. I'm playing around Tabernacle. I think I'm good. Possible I'm wrong and, like, the mana bond beats me. But my opponent can't cast the Life from the Loam this turn to get the stuff out of their graveyard. And if they mana bond, they can't, like, ambush me mid-combat with something like an Endurance. Okay, yeah. That was a really interesting decision, and I'm not sure if what I did there was right. Leave a timestamp in the comments if you want to sound off on that one. So, about the only thing that I might want to take into account here is that this is legendary for the purposes of Caracas. I wasn't actively thinking about that before. It's still just a flyer that blocks a Merit Lodge. It is an evasive threat. I think I'm going to keep it in the deck. I'd be bringing in, like, another Esper Sentinel over it, which is medium. Let's just keep the aggressive card in. It's on 62 cards. Head scratch. So my hand is probably a keep. I'm gonna have to figure out exactly, like, what I'm imprinting under the Mox. If I just imprint the Skystrike Officer and then I like lose Tundra to Wasteland, my mana's really, really awkward. But if I dump Brutal Cathar, then I don't have an immediate out to a fast Merit Lodge, which is one of the things that might reasonably beat me. So I'm going to kind of reevaluate things after my draw step. I'm almost certainly not getting rid of the Ravages of War. Like, my plan is get ahead on board and nuke the lands. Alright. Mana Bond probably would have been played out on turn 1. That's probably worth the 2 life. Exploration would have been played out, so I'm going to assume that my opponent doesn't have either one of those. Or at least it's slightly more unlikely that they do. Given that Ravages of War probably races Merit Lodge, I am going to Chrome Mox Brutal Cathar here. Get under there, buddy. Art looks like it's kind of like out of something like Bloodborne. Go ahead and play a Fortified Beachhead and reveal the Valiant Veteran that I am going to be playing this turn. Just in case you're wondering, I didn't want to play Skystrike Officer on turn 1 because I didn't want to expose this Ancient Tomb to a Wasteland. That's a Tabernacle. That's a little annoying, but not the end of the world. I'll get 2 points of damage in this turn, and then I have to decide whether or not I would like to play out another creature. If I don't play out another creature, I can just Armageddon away this Tabernacle next turn. That's going to be really awkward versus a Life from the Loam, though. So I think I might be shifting away from immediate Ravages of War and continuing to play aggressive threats onto the board, at least for now. I don't know. It may be correct to just not play another creature there. Alright, my opponent has found an Exploration. Wasteland. Alright. So given Wasteland plus Tabernacle, I'm now probably officially on the ride this game out with creatures plan. Because most of my mana is now tied up in my upkeep. And we need to keep these creatures around. Yeah, I probably play that out. Means I auto lose a creature. Oh, there is that. That's the first time I've actually gotten an attack trigger off with that creature. Alright, so my opponent drops to 13, and I guess since I have 3 creatures on board, I don't actually need to play out Esper Sentinel now. I will just make my land drop. This is gonna spiral. Let's see how bad this mulch is for me. Honestly, not that bad. Like, it's a draw 3, but there were neither of the combo pieces there. My opponent can make 2 land drops. Osage my Mox, turn it into a basic. I guess that can also take out this soldier token. Alright, they are Bosejuing the Chrome Mox. I will use that ability. Do I want to create a land source that is resistant to Wasteland? Probably. And I have some mana available. It's not like my opponent is going to Ghost Quarter me out of this game, because, like, if they get access to Life from the Loam, they've got other things that they can do already. I'll pay for all of these. Another Chrome Mox is my draw. Don't know that I'm really all that interested in that. I also kind of think that my opponent was supposed to wait for me to play this, or sorry, pay for the soldier token in my upkeep and then Boseiju the soldier token. Just make it more likely that they actually live. If I get wastelanded twice on my turn, I currently have 2 mana, and I can only deal 5 damage. I think I'm supposed to Chrome Mox this Esper Sentinel so that I can pay for an extra creature if I somehow get double wastelanded. Non-artifact. Right. Given that I have made that mistake, I'm going to put the Esper Sentinel into play so that Force of Vigor, exiling multiple of my creatures, isn't that bad. I guess honestly it's not like the Ravages of War was doing a whole lot. Oh, and just to finish that thought for anyone who's not super familiar with the exact texts of these cards, this is non-artifact, non-land, which is why I can't put Esper Sentinel under it. So yeah, I think if the game had my full attention, I still would have ended up taking this line. Just would have come to it a little more slowly. Alright, so my opponent starts to get creatures here. There's a Winding Way. I imagine I'll probably end up drawing a card here. I do. Ancient Tomb's not particularly good. That was not a good Winding Way for my opponent. That only found a tropical island. There is a crop rotation. We have some sort of glacial chasm type card that can keep me from winning. My opponent's taking a long time on this one, so the answer is probably no. Yeah, so they are just going to go for as many zombies as they can to prevent just dying on the ground. Sure. This is fine. And my opponent has one card left, which is Tropical Island. So let's just do a quick damage check. This flies, so I have 3 in the air. My opponent has 3 blockers, so if they block, 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 they are dead on board. So yeah, I'll just pay for all my stuff. Alright, I pick up another cool soldier. Play a land drop, double check, 3 in the air, 2 on the ground. That's 5. Send them. Yeah, this is my opponent realizing they're dead on board. GG's, and we take down that match. All right, round 3, we're 1-1. I have no mana sources here, so this one is an easy mulligan. This one's a keep. I have to decide what I'm doing with this Chrome Mox, if anything. I think the answer is just throw back the Chrome Mox, because I have a nice 1, 2, 3 curve here of aggressive cards, and I don't think I want to go down a card here after I've already mulliganed. There's a decent chance we're playing against the initiative this round. I'm going to actually be recording with one of my opponent's deck lists later today. Oh, not the initiative. Ooh, that's interesting. Anyway, they recently 5-0'd with Eliwick Tumblestrum and donated to have me play that on the channel. But, we're playing against something else here. Maybe a Bant or Hot Bant control deck list that is splashed red for EI and Minsk and Boo. So my interesting choice now is going to be like whether or not I Ancient Tomb Preeminent Captain next turn, or whether or not I just play Valiant Veteran normally and then Preeminent Captain normally. I think a lot of that is going to depend on whether I hit a land or non-land card in the next turn cycle. Never mind. Choice was taken from me. Let's go ahead and just give a little love tap then. Play a tapped Fortified Beachhead to not give my opponent information. Oh wait, I don't even need to play a tap because I control a soldier. Bonus Tundras, let's go. Opponent's making land drops. On the surface, not doing much else. Now the game gets harder. I think I'm interested in playing a post-combat Preeminent Captain and seeing if I end up trading with something like an Icefang Coatl or a random Snapcaster Mage in combat here. There's decently high upside to playing this out and having it work. Yeah, that's the problem with it, though. Like, I trade with Force of Will and my opponent has enough mana to just kind of do their stuff. That's okay, though. Alright, good. We've dodged something like a Teferi or an Uro in this turn cycle. This turn's rough, because my opponent could have an Endurance this turn, and I don't super want to play into that. Like, this 1/1 attack into an Endurance would be very bad for me. I think I'm more interested in putting the squeeze on my opponent's resources. Let's do this. And play out double Valiant Veteran this turn, because this will increase the tax on Esper Sentinel. And if my opponent uses any mana in response to either one of these spells, my attack becomes safe, whereas it wasn't previously. My god, will I be punished by something like a Terminus? I think I'm gonna go no attack here. And I may just be giving up 3 damage, but I don't know. I have the read. How does he do it? How does he do it? And now, like, I have this Esper Sentinel tax for 3 mana sitting in play, which is pretty brutal. It's looking less and less like I'm going to have to worry about a sweeper like Terminus, and I'm probably not going to encounter something like Brotherhood's End in Game 1. We're going to spend some time staring at each other. Got a land drop. Can't play both of these. I think I play the Skystrike off Ancient Tomb and draw a card with it and start trying to accrue my card advantage that way. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Just start drawing cards. We'll go wide of this Endurance, or just start making attacks with this. Ancient Tomb, not the best draw there. More Endurance, okay. Until my opponent has something like a Minsc and Boo in play, I'm not actually all that scared. Like, Minsc and Boo will chop through my life total pretty quickly, as I've taken a fair amount of Ancient Tomb damage. Okay, there is the Minsc and Boo. Finding another Esper Sentinel. And we'll see how my opponent plays this out. Yeah, I imagine you're just plussing. Alright, and we're gonna stare at each other. The Minsc and Boo can throw something next turn. Got a decent attack with this. I'll probably just vomit a bunch of creatures onto the battlefield this turn. Guess I'm tapping this Ancient Tomb. Let's start with the Thalia. Then I kind of know things are safe. Alright, so my stuff is resolving. I'm willing to take 2 more to play both of my cards out. I think so. Let's floop an Esper Sentinel into play and take 2 for a Preeminent Captain. Let's attempt to send this at the Minsc and Boo. Get a Soldier token out of that. Right, we are going to see the double block. I think I'm comfortable drawing at least 1 card here. I'm not going to block with these in... Well, I could block with one of those. Leaving my first strikers back is probably better, though. So let's tap 1, 2, 3, draw 1 card immediately. If they go plus here, attack for 7, 10 total. Probably don't want to tap down another creature. Things could get a little weird. All that good. I have a lot of taxation. Oh, I'm going to take care of this real quick. Okay, sorry, I just picked up some cards. Alright, so my opponent is going for the Fling on one of the Esper Sentinels. Opponent's got another land drop here. I'm very likely to draw a card with Esper Sentinel, which is cool because I'd like to find another piece of gas for Preeminent Captain. But I wasn't quite willing to just draw the extra card, tap down really low, and then potentially just lose to a removal spell on one of my creatures. Okay. Can certainly kill the Minsc and Boo on my turn. The attacks with the first strikers are very good. Attacks with the Valiant Veterans aren't that bad, because I can just instant speed, use my mana in this turn cycle to pump everything. I don't know that I like attacking with Esper Sentinel and letting that die in particular. I don't really super care about the Soldier token. Uro's a bit of a problem. That's just coming next turn. Probably have to kill the Minsc and Boo to just keep grinding this game. I can attack 3 things at Minsc and Boo and almost certainly kill it. Let's do that. I don't think I can beat Minsc and Boo and Uro simultaneously. That attack is safe. That attack is safe. And now do I throw away a Valiant Veteran and just convert it into +1/+1 counters? Or do I throw away a Soldier token? Probably throw away one of these, because it gives me something to do with my mana in this turn cycle. Alright. No Preeminent Captain trigger. Alright, so my opponent is go ahead and taking the obvious block here. And Minsc and Boo dies. I can do this at instant speed, so I probably don't need to do it right now. Lightning Bolt specifically could be weird, but I think I'd rather just hold this up and see if my opponent forgets about it. Alright, there is the Uro that we expected. So, this is a bit of a scary position. I've taken out one of my opponent's sources of card advantage, but not both. I'll go ahead, throw the team. Dipping down to a dangerous 8 life. The flooding here is pretty brutal. I theoretically have enough damage to first strike, block out an Uro. That block is definitely dangerous, though. It is what it is. I don't think I am willing to try to turn the corner and start attacking here. Alright, so there is a Ponder. My opponent is willing to use the mana to prevent me from drawing a card. I think this game, the needle is slightly in favor of my opponent, so I think they just can't let me draw cards here. And then I just kind of hope that I top deck well enough to either go wide of this or find a removal spell for the Uro and just break this game wide open. Oh, a second exalted creature is a little rough. Means Uro can be attacking as an 8/8. Oh, the flood is so real. Play it out. Yeah, every turn that looks like this is just time for my opponent to cast a cantrip or find a removal spell or whatever. This is very bad for me. Okay, there's an EI. I presume my opponent will pay the tax. They're not leaving up blue? That seems wrong. Yeah, okay, they caught on to that. And then pay the tax. Oh, they found a Strix. That is probably worth playing. Because that is not gonna do this. Esper Sentinel only triggers once per turn, and also doesn't trigger on non-creatures. Seems good. Ooh, hoo, 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 hoo. That can do stuff. Alright, I'll get to draw a card off Esper Sentinel. Oh, nope. Alright, it has resolved. We'll see if that card makes it around the table. I have a secondary problem here in that, like, my opponent now has a flyer, and I don't have any flyers or reach cards right now. So this Baleful Strix can just 3-turn me. My opponent does have 8 cards in hand, though. Damn, it's been kind of crazy. I guess I can close this zone. Okay, yeah, there is the Baleful Strix attack. I'm going to 5. So I basically can't tap the Ancient Tombs anymore. I think that's okay, as I've, like, kind of flooded out. Alright, Petty Theft buys my opponent a turn. And they have enough mana to pay for the tax. I know they have Force of Will in hand. So they can just Force of Will at this turn. They're scary. So I play Myrel off an Ancient Tomb. Let it get countered. Then Palace Jailer Baleful Strix. Force my opponent to play a new flyer. Alternatively, I play... There's also Preeminent Captain based lines here. I can attack with Preeminent Captain, let Preeminent Captain put in Myrel. Myrel is uncounterable, and then I can Palace Jailer away the Strix without taking 2 points of life damage. Brazen Borrower, a couple turns from now, will still kill me. Fuck. This is tapped and attacking, so that's a problem. Yeah, so it's probably the pre-combat baseline that I talked about previously then. Alright. So there's the Myrel. Holy hell, this game has been so complicated. Oh, it just resolved. Wild. Okay. So then Jailer happens. Jailer takes out the Strix. I become the pretty princess. I'll call it a turn. Draw a card. Oh my god, that is so good. Gotta figure out how to beat this. I essentially need to draw a flyer. Or another removal spell. It's still game 1, right? It's still game 1. So I don't have Swords to Plowshares, so I'm not gonna have instant speed removal spells. Guess I'm dead to Minsk and Boo. But that's been true for a while, right? Fuck. Fuck! My opponent can pay the Esper Sentinel tax so I don't get to draw a card. And then they just throw Uro at my face. Ugh. GG. Like, that was a hell of a fucking game. May end up being a timeout game of some kind. There are a lot of decisions there that could have gone differently in both directions. I enjoyed that a lot. Lords of Plowshares are coming in so that I can actually crash through for damage, and given my opponent's inevitability, I am on board with these as well. I probably don't need Cathar Commando. This game is probably going long enough where I don't even need to play Chrome Mox. Like, that puts me light on mana sources, but, like, the game went long. I think that's fine. And I have to make one cut. Maybe this. My mana is ever so slightly worse without Chrome Mox. And it, like, is one of the creatures that lines up poorly versus Endurance. I don't know, maybe I cut both of those because they do line up poorly versus Endurance. In a way that, like, my first strikers might not. I don't know. Like, once I have one Lord in play, they trade with it. Yeah, I'll just trim the one and keep these out. Oh, I can play Enlistment Officer. Like, we're definitely grinding in this matchup. I will take out the other one of those then. This is a single land hand that is not going to do it. Has no colored mana. Not like this. Not like this. This is a perfectly reasonable hand that I will be keeping. I have to put 2 of these back. That one goes for sure. Second one's a little harder. I think it's going to be Brutal Cathar. I think I'm going to value the permanent exile of Swords to Plowshares here. And let's start playing some uncounterable soldiers. I am at a massive, massive disadvantage this game after the double mulligan. Yep. That's okay. I'm just gonna play out Caracas here. Like, it's worse if I get wastelanded. Like, it's worse by a lot. But if I just draw any other land, I don't really want Ancient Tomb to just cost me a bunch of damage. Nice, like this. Name Soldier. We'll drop the Veteran into play. And we'll keep the beats going. I have a lot of power on board. I can take out a surprise blocker, and I've got mana to play everything outside of, like, Captain of the Guard. So hopefully I can just put the pressure on here. If it looks like I'm going to win, I wouldn't be, like, too surprised if my opponent concedes, because, like, they're down a few minutes on clock. Yeah. Given my bad situation, I probably will Swords to Plowshares this to just keep the pressure up, even though, like, I absolutely will now, even though that makes me worse against something like a Endurance in the next turn cycle or so. But I've got to do everything that I can to win this game. Like, I don't get a game 3 if I can't take this one down, so willing to take some risks. My opponent also hasn't had a chance to kind of cantrip to fix their mana yet, so hopefully Esper Sentinel can serve as either a speed bump or a source of card advantage when I desperately need it. Another Wasteland. Okay. Reasonable. But this isn't advancing my opponent towards Minsc and Boo. Real good for me. Alright, we've got a plan. Remove the creatures and ride these 2 threats to victory. I guess I do have onboard Caracas versus Minsc and Boo. So I've got that going for me. Another Esper Sentinel. I do not want to play that out pre-combat in case I need to double Swords to Plowshares during this combat. Because of something like Endurance with Force of Will protection. Does seem like an Endurance is about to come down. Oh, it's a Lightning Bolt. Sure. So that dampens my pressure by a whole lot. That's just 1 damage for right now. My opponent drops to 7. I can play out a new Esper Sentinel, and if I draw another land, I can put some counters on those. Alright, so there's Force of Will, and my opponent has already played 1 spell this turn, so they kind of dodged the tax. Game is slipping in favor of my opponent, but it's not like we're done here yet. That's super unfortunate. So they can pay the tax on that, kill my creature, and get another Wasteland, presumably. Yeah. And I would Wasteland Caracas here, I think. Oh, no, okay. I would be interested in paving the way towards Minsc and Boo actually being a real card, but I get it. Like, stick me on mana, make it so that I can't cast the 3 drops. Alright, EI is going to start pulling my opponent ahead. I think I'm mostly hoping that they can't close the game in a timely fashion, because, like, they are on 6 minutes of clock. I don't know if I'm supposed to Source the Plowshares, the Baleful Strix here, because it doesn't just, like, end the game quickly. I think I'm going to, because my mana is going to be very tight, and if I draw any sort of, like, Thalia type card, I want to be able to play it. Alright, play that. I'm not going to reveal my card. I don't need the bonus mana up right now. I will not Swords to Plowshares the next Baleful Strix. I will absolutely save the next one of these for something like an Uro. Maybe not even Uro specifically. Make my land drop. Got some chance of drawing an Ancient Tomb and being able to play this card uncounterably next turn. Alright, that's my opponent playing out a threat in an attempt to just close this game. I'm going to attempt to take that out. I want to do it before they have Hardcast Force of Will available. Captain of the Watch into Valiant Veteran activate would be pretty cool. Alright, there's a Minsk and Boo that's currently checked by my Caracas. Boop. Opponent's got to try it, though. I am not ready to play that card yet. I need more mana. Like, despite the fact that it's uncounterable right now, like, my opponent would just, like, do the whole Minsk and Boo thing. And it would not be good for me. Alright, EI is good. But opponent's about to enter the red zone in terms of time. Finding another EI. The value. Sure. There is an Ignoble Hierarch. Another land. And we'll loop that out of play again. And see where this goes. Now I can probably play Uncounterable Palace Jailer, nuke this, while still holding up Caracas, and it's reasonable. And then, hopefully, Captain of the Watch gets me somewhere cool in the not-too-distant future. Alright, goodbye, Ignoble Hierarch. There's some degree of risk here, obviously, in introducing the Monarch into a game versus a deck that has flash creatures. But I think I need the extra look set cards here. Alright. Junk the Minsk and Boo token. Call it a turn. I don't think I attack the Minsk and Boo. I'm going to play out one of these two creatures. I'll just be happy enough with that. Not sure which one. Probably Preeminent Captain. Like, the first strike is good. The ability to cheat in Captain of the Watch is good. And I'm not attacking. I just am trying not to lose to something like Endurance taking the Monarch status. And I'm trying to... Oh, my opponent can actually exile my graveyard for value. They can get rid of my Valiant Veteran. Oh no, they have junked their own graveyard. Sure. Guess they're putting some copies of EI back into their deck. Alright. Junk your creature. Okay, Endurance is crashing in. Do I want to double block, or do I just want to chump block? I kind of just want to chump block with Palace Jailer. Okay, my opponent is admitting that they probably can't win this game, and they're just going to try to win the next game in 4 minutes. This is a super interesting decision that I'm not going to use mental energy to think through here, though. Okay. For the next game, do I want to play Leyline of the Void just so that I don't get a game spiked by Uro? Like, am I trying to actually present a reasonable game of Magic, or am I just trying to time my opponent out? I think I still need to present a reasonable game of Magic. I think I'm going to resubmit the deck list as is. Alright, bantered a little bit with my opponent, and now we'll go ahead and submit. They're a little worried that they might not be able to win a game in 4 minutes, but they think if they didn't concede there, they were in trouble. I will absolutely keep this hand. This hand is very strong. Yeah, but they basically said, like, they might be able to win a game in 4 minutes, but they probably can't do any better than that. I don't know which one of these I want to get wastelanded here. It's super weird, because, like, if Tundra gets wastelanded, it takes me off double Swords to Plowshares. I think that's scarier for me, so I'm going to go ahead and play this out on Soldier. Like, it's not great if it gets wastelanded, like, let's be clear here. But I think having access to these so that I don't randomly die to an Endurance hitting me a bunch of times matters a lot. And I think despite... shit. That is absolutely changing my game. I think I'm still going to play Thalia, despite the fact that, like, it taxes my Armageddon out of play. I think I let my opponent kill my Thalia, try to get another creature on board, and then drop Geddon. Oh, my opponent doesn't have another land drop in the face of Thalia. That's really bad. I'm going to go ahead and crash in with a Thalia. Drop my opponent to 18. Go ahead and play out an uncounterable Skystrike Officer here. And then if I draw a land, I will probably be comfortable casting an Armageddon next turn. And if I don't draw a land, like, it's okay. I'll just play Valiant Veteran and increase my onboard pressure. Lightning Bolting Thalia is totally fine. I don't think I Armageddon this turn. Whoop. Uncounterable Preeminent Captain will spiral out of control pretty quickly. And like having a preeminent captain on board for an Armageddon situation is very, very, very strong. Yeah, EI is fine. Like having to use EI to make land drops here results in taking a lot of damage. I am A-okay with everything that's happening here. My opponent even has to discard a card. Okay. Probably just do a post-combat Armageddon here. I could play pre-combat Valiant Veteran and just hit my opponent for as much as humanly possible. Put in a tapped Thalia attacking. That's probably better versus Force of Will. I'm actually going to take some damage here to hold up the white mana. Or no, that doesn't matter because I'm going to put in Thalia. So, uncounterable Veteran. Currently, what? 3-6. Okay, yeah, we've just gotten the GGs from the opponent. Alright, GGs. Yeah, I think I can just sandbag the Armageddon there and not play it out. Alright, so I'm on the draw here with a hand that is almost certainly a keep. It's probably putting Harbin under a Chrome Mox and playing a turn 1 Thalia. See where this goes. A lot of Verdant Catacombs today. Elves? 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 Okay. Thalia is not great against elves. So my plan needs to become cast this card, go wide of my opponent. And so I maybe don't even play Thalia here. I maybe just play the 3-2 flyer. Probably just play the 3-2 flyer here. So let's Chrome Mox, put a Harbin under, play a Fortified Beachhead, reveal a Harbin, and cast a 3-2 flyer. So we've got Harbin into Myrel, play Thalia the next turn, attack, make three duders. And then we can see what we can do from there. Punished by not playing Thalia. I don't regret that, because I think I am on a very real clock in terms of resources here. Yeah, Birchlore Rangers is what I didn't want to see, so now my opponent can vomit out any 1-mana elves in their hands, because Birchlore Ranger plus Nettle Sentinel taps for 1 mana, and then you cast a 1-mana elf, and Nettle Sentinel untaps itself, and you can repeat the process. Generally speaking, the death and taxes type decks end up having a lot of trouble versus elves. You have to deal with fast combo and going wide and like Allosaurus Shepherd activations. Like there's a lot of things that you have to worry about. Thankfully here my opponent couldn't glimpse too hard. Alright, there is now a preeminent captain. Unfortunately, preeminent captain putting in Myrel is not great. So I think I would rather just play Myrel this turn and then vomit a bunch of stuff in play next turn. Kind of is what it is. And then I try to make a whole bunch of tokens, give them all flying with this, and hope that that goes somewhere meaningful. I'm relatively dead to my opponent having a Gaia's Cradle. Like, Gaia's Cradle plus activate on this is going to beat me either over 1 turn, over multiple turns. So, like, I'm gonna work towards something that might have a chance at winning, but life's bad. 2 mana for Aquarian Ranger. And we've got an Elvish Visionary. This is scary. Because, like, my opponent is officially at 6 creatures in play, so Gaia's Cradle essentially kills me on the spot. Not literally, but basically. Yeah, there we go. Oh, just hardcast the hoof? Fuck me. Alright, let's go. So that is far more than lethal. We will go ahead and concede there. We're going to have a lot of trouble winning this one. I just don't think on average we race our opponent. I basically have to board out the Palace Jailers. My opponent is just going to be so good at taking the Monarch back. But, like, despite the fact that that's removal, I don't think that's good. I need to play the 4 Source to Plowshares, and honestly, from there, I need to just get a little lucky. I am not going to beat my opponent on their best hands. My sideboard cards aren't great here, and given how much elf-based mana my opponent has, I don't think I can rely on Armageddon as a way to get rid of Gaia's Cradle. I think this is one where we just lost the matchup lottery, and it's probably not going to happen. Can't put Esper Sentinel under Chrome Mox, which is a little awkward here. This hand is probably a keep. I do have to figure out what is going under the Chrome Mox. It might be Skystrike Officer, but Skystrike Officer plus Valiant Veteran is really good. I don't know, I want to play Valiant Veteran turn 1 into Skystrike, but I probably need to play it into Brutal Cathar instead, so I think that does mean putting Skystrike Officer under here. That does give me blue mana for the future, which is relevant, I suppose. There's our Soldier Lord. And we're hoping to Brutal Cathar literally any elf out of the way. Most awkward if my opponent just passes the turn and fetches Dryad Arbor, because then I don't use my mana very efficiently. But we have dodged that. Alright, fantastic. Oh, okay, this hand probably just wins now. So, I Brutal Cathar the first creature out of the way, I attack for 2. I Brutal Cathar the second creature out of the way, I attack for 5. And that's going to make Gaia's Cradle just significantly worse. Fantastic. There's a very good chance we force a game 3 here. What we're looking for. We're probably not going to flip this thing back and forth within this matchup, but we'll see. I guess I don't really want to see, like, Elvish Visionary this turn. Like, that would be a very awkward card for me to Brutal Cathar out of play. Alright, Birchlore Rangers. And passing the turn. This is a fine play, but I'm just going to continue to pressure my opponent by taking their stuff out of play. Like, my next turn can be these 2 cards, and I will be perfectly happy with that. But the more times you can disrupt elves in the early game, the lower a chance they have of getting to the critical density of cards that they need to do combo chains. Stuff can still happen, but I am in a good position here. And this is probably not a very good glimpse. Like, this is a glimpse that probably draws 2 cards. With why? Oh, no, okay. Okay, that was about the best that could possibly go. They need to play an elf as their next card, and if they do, this turn's pretty good. Nope. That did not occur. So let's go ahead and crash in here. Yeah, I assumed we were hitting for the full damage amount. My opponent is at 3. I probably play Thalia so that I'm better versus, like, natural order type situations. Harbin's really good because, like, I will get the Anthem next turn. There's also lines where I don't play anything, but I think those are worse than just playing 2 creatures. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the disruptive route, and a route that maybe draws me a card as well. Playing Harbin always gives me lethal next turn, but I think I either have lethal or effectively lethal next turn. If my opponent has to just throw a billion things in front of the boss to survive, they're probably not coming out of the turn in a winning position. But tap Gaius or play natural order is very much a thing. I've mostly disrupted, like, Glimpse, and Green Sun based lines here. See what they got. 4 mana. They can Wirewood untap to get to 5 if they do have a Glimpse. Alright, it is another Elvish Visionary. They are probably at survive the turn levels of blockers here, but my attacks are very good. Wow, 3 Elvish Visionaries. Okay, Forest as land drop. Oh, 3 mana. Are we moving to Elvish Visionary bounce nonsense? We are. Replay. Now my opponent can get 3 more mana out of the Heritage Druid. 4 mana. There's an untap and a bounce of an Elvish Visionary, so they're going for more cards. Yeah, I might still lose this one. Thalia hasn't taxed any mana here that I can see. That doesn't mean it's not taxing any mana effectively from, like, a Green Sun. So any 2 of these creatures connecting is a problem for my opponent, but my opponent has decent jump blocks. I don't think I can attack with this Brutal Cathar that has Allosaurus Shepherd under it. If my opponent does some sort of triple block thing and takes that out, they actually have a win condition in play. Though maybe if they triple block, they just don't have enough density. I always just have lethal next turn with a Harbin attack. This and this have to be blocked by at least one creature. And then Thalia also has to be blocked. There's 3 obligatory blocks. Let's just call that 1, 2, 3. Opponent is losing at least 3 bodies. I probably just shove everything then. Yeah, I probably just shove everything. A little uncertain about this attack. This is also one of those times where if I was playing in a high stakes event, I would sit here for 5 minutes and do all of the permutations. But given that this is a random league, I'm calling this good enough. That is lethal damage that you are taking currently. This is going to be like a Boseiju on Esper Sentinel. Yep, okay. Pick up a Tundra here. Now my opponent can bounce both of the Elvish Visionaries back to hand. Is indeed what we see. And they're going to go to 1 here. So a fetch land is not occurring. Harbin represents 100% lethal damage next turn. I don't think it's worth taking 2 life to untap Thalia. Unless a Crater Hoof gets involved, Thalia is only tapping for 1 mana. My opponent's got a lot of draws with Wirewood bounces to find a natural order to kill me. Let's see how deep this chain goes. Cradle tapping for this much mana is absurd. Do you have the big card yet? Untap. Okay, it's a glimpse. Alright, I'm just gonna F6. Like, do what you can, draw your cards, see if you can find a natural order. I guess they could also find the hoof naturally, right? They've got 8 mana as of right now. Up to 7. And untap with Wirewood. IU as land drop per turn, so we don't have to worry about a second Cradle anymore. Oh, I should actually not, I guess, F6, because Raucusing Harbin is a thing that could matter now that my opponent has black mana. Unfortunately, there is the natural order. And the hoof that will beat me. So that is very much lethal damage through blockers. I will go ahead and concede here. Maybe I should have just played out the Harbin the turn that I opted to play Thalia. The Thalia is better versus like Natural Order and Glimpse lines, especially after some Elvish Visionary redraws. And like I did force my opponent to throw away 3 creatures plus the Boseiju, and it just wasn't enough. Alright, going into round 5, we're 2-2, so this is the one to see whether we come out ahead or a little behind. My opening hand is pretty underwhelming. I don't have enough mana to cast 3 of my cards, and despite the fact that Myrel is pretty good, I think I'd rather just ship and try to find something that has a stronger potential opening. And I think this one qualifies. We'll throw back 1 Ancient Tomb here. And I think I'm just going to lead on basic planes so I can't get wastelanded, and then try to jam Preeminent Captain. The only reason to lead on Ancient Tomb instead is if the top card of my library is exactly Cavern of Souls, then I could play an uncounterable Preeminent Captain, which could matter. But I don't think I want to play towards that line, given how inconsistently that is going to happen. Alright, so we know the matchup. We're playing against the baddie, Blue-Red Delver. I don't like how my hand lines up here. My opponent has played a turn 1 threat and is growing it actively while I'm on an Ancient Tomb hand. That does not bode well for me. And Preeminent Captain is likely to be answered by one of Daze, Force, or Lightning Bolt. So, life's not great. Opponent gets to draw a card for their Bauble. I found Valiant Veteran. I think I'm still offering Preeminent Captain up as a sacrifice so that I can actually resolve this and trade with the Dragon Rage Channeler in combat. Yeah. Knew that was coming. My opponent has pitched a Murktide Regent, though, so that's good news for me. Because I am not beating a Murktide Regent anytime soon. Or Baubles. Right, EI goes to Yard. We're past 4 card types in their graveyard, so I am getting hit for 3 here. Murktide Regent could come down this turn. Wasteland would be really bad. Honestly, another Dragon Rage Channeler is bad enough. Or even a Delver. Down to 15 from this attack. And hopefully that's it. Because I think I basically auto-concede to just fetch Murktide Regent, even though it's not a large Murktide Regent. Uh-huh. Damn it. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, you know you're playing against soldiers. You don't want to pitch a Murktide Regent to a Force of Will unless you have a second. Alright, now the Dragon Rage Channeler does technically shrink back because, like, card types. I need to attempt to trade a flyer with Dragon Rage Channeler and then figure out how I'm going to beat Murktide Regent. The answer is top deck a removal spell, but I'm only looking at 6 removal spells in game 1. Most sideboard games are going to be a lot more bearable here because we're going to get both Leyline of the Void and Source of Plowshares. But I think we are super an underdog in game 1. We also may see some splash damage from the initiative deck here, as Delver is sometimes picking up, I think it's Unchained Berserker is the name of it. There's a 2-mana blue-white creature that attacks for 3 power that's becoming common. And then there's also, I think it's Blood Knight, is a red-red 2/2 pro-white creature. So my opponent may randomly have a bunch of pro-white creatures that I'm going to have trouble dealing with. Oh, this is brutal. So I'm now getting attacked for 8. I'm on a 2-turn clock. I am basically dead this turn if I don't draw a removal spell. Okay. I mean, we're still in it. This is bad, but we're still in it. That lets me take out the Murktide Regent. I'm on a 2-turn clock, and I can never tap this Ancient Tomb again. So, like, life's still awful. But there's a small chance I can win. I am literally dead to Lightning Bolt. I'm effectively dead to any removal spell on Brutal Cathar. Yep. Okay. Game 2. I want to board in 8 cards, Leylines and Swords to Plowshares. I have to figure out what I don't want. Alright, Cathar Commando is the easy cut here. We're not expecting very many artifacts and enchantments from my opponent. From there, it gets a little bit harder. I'm probably not cutting any of my flyers. I'm probably not cutting my removal spell creatures. That probably means looking at Thalia as the next thing to cut here. I'm still going to need to take out 2 cards. Maybe captains. I want to think about this a bit, though. So I am never getting rid of jailers and preeminent captains. Or, well, I could get rid of preeminent captain, but, like, doing preeminent captain while leaving in captain of the watch is awkward. So I'm never cutting those. I am never cutting my flyers. They just trade with Dragon Rage Channelers and let me prioritize my removal elsewhere. So that means this is the pool of stuff I'm drawing from. Myrel lives through Lightning Bolt and spirals a game. I like that. I could just cut my clunkiest card and play good solid Magic. But when I'm on the play, like Preeminent Captain uncounterably into Captain of the Watch is incredibly strong. And if I drag this game on really long with Leyline, I can actually cast this. Let's not get cute. Let's not get cute. This is a solid hand. I will keep this one. I believe that I am leading on Ancient Tomb. If one of my lands get wastelanded, I want it to be, I think, my colorless one. I don't know. It's actually really interesting. So, like, if Ancient Tomb gets wastelanded, I can draw Swords to Plowshares and still have a removal spell off of Tundra. But if Tundra gets wastelanded, I can draw any white source and then just still deploy Preeminent Captain on turn 2. So maybe my first thought is wrong, and I should just lead on Tundra. Leyline's going in no matter what. I think I will just Tundra pass. Sorry, not play Preeminent Captain on turn 2. Play Preeminent Captain off of 2 lands is more accurate. Okay, there is the Wasteland, so we'll see how this decision plays out. Alright. My punish is that I've drawn Esper Sentinel, and I cannot play it. But if I draw a white source next turn and I play Preeminent, fuck me. Okay. Alright. That's rough. Okay, we're going to play Draw Go for a little while. My opponent is incredibly favored from this position. Like, I have the Leyline in play, but, like, they could just play Dragon Rage Channeler and smack me with it 20 times if I can't do anything. I did draw a land, though, so Esper Sentinel is a pretty reasonable card to deploy. I think if I hit my second land drop, my opponent is no longer favored. This Esper Sentinel has been on the stack for a long time. I think my opponent has a Force of Will or Daze, and they're debating whether or not this is actually worth using it on. They do have the Daze. They topped whatever their card was. So there's redeploying the Volcanic Island. I'll take one. Oh, nice. Swords to Plowshares. I will happily enough fire that off in my opponent's upkeep. Like, forcing them to use their mana on their turn to protect this is totally reasonable. Or it can force some, like, upkeep brainstorms that are slightly suboptimal. They have exiled a brainstorm off of that brainstorm with their Surveil. Alright, and looks like we are getting to hit the Dragon Rage Channeler. Guess we're maybe not scared, but a Delver would be inconvenient here. Fantastic. Now start playing cards. Preeminent Captain is kind of the prize here. Like, Preeminent Captain, getting one attack trigger in and cheating 3 mana is huge when I'm really stretched thin. My creature has resolved. It didn't immediately get lightning bolted. And we'll see what my opponent can do. This is probably a good turn for an EI to hit play. Yep. Okay. That let them hit their land drop. And a new Dragon Rage Channeler hits play. Esper Sentinel's not bad. It's not what I'm looking for. But I don't hate taxing my opponent's mana. And it's safely resolved. I don't think I've said this yet, but all it takes for my opponent to throw this game wildly in their favor is them finding a copy of Brazen Borrower. Bouncing this Leyline out of play is horrific for me, because then Dragon Rage Channeler can start scaling up, Murktide Regent starts coming back into the equation. And they've topped something with Dragon Rage Channeler. The selection of this 1/1 is still pretty good, even if it's not clocking me for a lot. Like, it's worth a lot since Delver can play so many, like, kind of narrow but extremely strong cards in their sideboard, just kind of due to how things are constructed. Alright, I have hit my next land drop, so let's jam a Preeminent Captain. I technically should do this post-combat, but it doesn't really matter. In play, I'll attack for 2. This is still absolutely lightning boltable, but I think if my opponent doesn't, like, take this out of play or otherwise drop multiple creatures in this turn cycle, the game has probably tipped in my favor at this point. Like, they could lightning bolt Preeminent Captain and then, like, wasteland me, and they'll probably be in the favored position. Alright, there's a Scalding Turn. Alright, there's a Lightning Bolt. Very good for my opponent. Keep putting cards on top. Like, I'm winning the onboard race, but they're probably doing fine overall. This time, since I have the open mana available pre-combat, I'm just going to go ahead and do my attack in now. I'll hit for 2, drop my opponent to 14. I could play a flyer that I could protect with Karakas, but I think I'm just going to keep jamming Preeminent Captain. Alright, Force of Will, pitching a Murktide Regent. I have left the card on top again. Alright, Delver is solid. This is going to be a 3/4 though, which is going to line up very favorably versus Delver. So at least for now, I'm a-okay with where we're at. Fortified Beachhead. I don't have to reveal since I control a soldier. Let's attack in for my 2 points of damage. Alright, opponent does drop to 11. I'm gonna go ahead and play this out. I don't think I'm supposed to play Harbin into Daze here. If Delver flips, off Lightning Bolt. This is sort of an inconvenient card for me, because my opponent can bolt this and then, like, trade in combat with the Skystrike Officer. I'd probably make that trade and then play this with Karakas protection. Possible I'm supposed to just take 3 here, though. An attack with a Dragon Rage Channeler. Oh, I see. You want to trade Dragon Rage Channeler for Skystrike Officer. I do not accept that. I'll take the 1 here. Now, if I attack with Skystrike Officer and trade it with Delver and Lightning Bolt, I'm still going to have a bonus soldier available, so I think I'm okay with that overall. Let's send them. Make my soldier token. Alright, there's the Lightning Bolt on the Lord. I guess I can go for instant speed, save my creature if my opponent blocks. A little bad versus Lightning Bolt. Also get more value out of waiting. Yeah, if my opponent's not going to block, I think I'll just wait a turn cycle on that. My opponent drops to 9. I'll play out Harbin. Call it a turn. Next turn, I have, like, a pretty darn good use of my mana. I have theoretically exact lethal if my opponent swings out this turn for some reason, but I don't really see them doing that. That's unfortunate. 3 damage to target creature, and I don't have Valiant Veteran mana up right now. That's okay. Like, the Harbin is still strong. Do I accept this trade? Card is a pain in the butt, but I think I will accept it still. Not like a Skystrike Officer, which can just, like, wall the Delver. Nice. I'm just going to play this turn. I'll be happy enough attacking a 1-1 into a 1-1. Some random things that could blow me out in combat, but they're relatively uncommon. Opponent drops to 8. Play a new Skystrike Officer. They've forced another Force of Will. My opponent is topping everything with their Dragon Rage Channeler. I guess good for them. 3 of the 4 Force of Wills are now in exile. 3 of the 4 Lightning Bolts are now in exile. See what my opponent can put together. I've got this Valiant Veteran just chilling. I'm not willing to just, like, make a 2-2 out of a 1-1 with it. Like, I want more value than just that. Alright, I will take the 1 damage here. I'm at 14. Preeminent Captain is a solid draw here. I'm really thankful I am not, like, taking a bunch of damage to Ancient Tomb while I am deploying my cards here. Because, like, Dragon Rage Channeler, while doing great in terms of selection, isn't actually closing the game at all. Alright. Opponent doesn't have too many fetchables left in their deck in all likelihood. Gonna be a few. Okay. That was a slog. Opponent's also down 7 minutes off of clock. I don't think I want to change anything here. Again, it seems like my Harbins and Skystrike Officers and whatever are going to line up relatively well against my opponent's non-Murktide Regent threats. Starting on a ley line here is really strong. I don't know that I'm going to, like, 100% mulligan to one, but the matchup with and without it was, like, night and day different. Okay. Do I mulligan this hand? It has a turn 1 Lightning Rod. It has a removal spell, but one that's not great versus Lightning Bolt. And it has 1 dead card. This Chrome Mox is basically not ever going to be a playable card in this hand. I think this hand gets Delvered a lot. I am going to mulligan. While I'm not, like, necessarily going to mulligan 100% to a leyline hand, I think fishing for one a little bit is probably fine. Brutal Cathar is great. Ancient Tomb and Cavern are great. From there, it's a little harder. Valiant Veteran is not good in the short term, but I don't have mana for Harbin. Harbin trades with creatures relatively well. I think I'm just going to keep the highest density of, like, things that can trade with a Delver here. We're afraid of Wasteland. We're good against a lot of other stuff here, though. Alright, there's the Steam Vents. And Dragon Rage Channeler. That is a great draw. Now I have something that either eats an early Lightning Bolt, or taxes my opponent's mana, or draws me cards, and I'm okay with all of those results. Very afraid of Wasteland here. Okay, good. Opponent doesn't have it. Dragon Rage Channeler attacks. I think I trade. I just don't want to give my opponent that selection if I can help it. Okay, yeah, and they are kind of the same opinion that I am, that Dragon Rage Channeler is better than Esper Sentinel. I'm going to go ahead and offer up the trade on my end, because I would kind of like to play Skystrike Officer this turn and save Brutal Cathar for later. Oh shit, they're trading. Hell yeah. Okay, nice. I mean, I'm very happy with that. So that means that I can go ahead and just play out my 2/3 flyer. It dodges counterspells. I've got Brutal Cathar for if my opponent can follow up with a Delver or whatever. Again, still very afraid of Wasteland, as it takes me off of, like, very essential mana. Okay, there is Petty Theft. I don't think I like my opponent trading Esper Sentinel for Dragon Rage Channeler there. Like, I think they just Petty Theft the Leyline out of play and ride Dragon Rage Channeler into a Murktide Regent very quickly. I don't like how they played that out. Oh, they found Wasteland off the EI. That's brutal. Oh, they chose the wrong card. Hell yeah. Oh, that draw is also stellar for me. So I get to attack. I get to make a 1/1 creature, get in for 2, play this. I don't need to reveal anything since I control a soldier, and then I get an uncounterable Harbin. I think my opponent has punted this game twice. I think taking out the Cavern of Souls is probably better than taking out the Ancient Tomb. And I think trading Dragon Rage Channeler for Esper Sentinel was wrong. I don't know, maybe that's very evident from my side of the battlefield and less evident from my opponent's side. No shuffle with the Ponder, so they found something that they like. I'm hoping that they just play out a creature so that I can keep, like, getting in there with Brutal Cathar. Or sorry, so I can, like, play Brutal Cathar and, like, use my mana. Alright, I get in for 4 this turn. Fine. It's unexciting. It's good. My opponent's at 11. I don't think I can play Brutal Cathar as a 2/2 here. I don't think I'm close enough to the finish line where that makes sense. So this is just going to be me passing the turn. I can throw Leyline of the Void under a Chrome Mox at some point if I end up needing to try to double spell or something. Bolt is strong here. Yeah, fetch and play your Murktide. I get to Brutal Cathar it. Brutal Cathar is currently uncounterable. I am good with this. I don't really want more land here. Like, I do want a little bit more gas. I don't think I'm going to bluff having another piece of white interaction this turn. I would rather save the 2 life. Goodbye, Murktide. I get to swing in for 1 point of damage. Of note, like, Brutal Cathar is temporary, right? Like, my opponent can EI into a Lightning Bolt or whatever and get their Murktide Regent back. But, like, it will enter the battlefield as a 3/3 flyer, which is still good, but it won't be, 5/5 or greater. I am fully at the mercy of the top of my deck, though. Like, I have some great draws. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I was talking about there. Wasteland's good. Wasteland can take out Cavern. Yep. I will go ahead and play out a Harbin this turn. I have something that can trade with Murktide Regent. I think we might be reaching the stage where my opponent is favored, though, because, like, they have a Brazen Borrower, Chilling, and Exile, so they effectively have 4 cards in hand. And I effectively have 0 cards in hand. That is an awful draw for me. Do I want to force a trade here? I probably want to force a trade here before my opponent finds a Lightning Bolt type card. But I'm not the biggest fan of the situation that I'm in. Yeah. I was fine making this attack. Not great for me, but, like, given that this is a 2 toughness creature, even finding a Lord isn't going to make the combat better for me. That should take out Fortified Beachhead. Okay. I think taking me off blue is more important than taking me off larger amounts of mana there, because, like, my blue creatures are a problem for you. Although that equation changes if they have a red Elemental Blast in hand. Alright. So let's crash in for 1. The opponent has the better clock, and probably the better hand, probably the better top decks. But they do have the lower life total, so if I do get something that sticks, this is very good for me. Oh, it's another Brazen Borrower. Okay, I think I have now lost. I get hit for 6 on my opponent's turn, and I'm dead to a Lightning Bolt next turn. Yeah, I don't really think I have anything that wins anymore. I'm not going to concede. Like, I'll see if I'm wrong. But I need to somehow answer both of those creatures. I guess it would need to be, like, Palace Jailer into draw Swords to Plowshares or something like that. And then opponent never finds a Lightning Bolt for the rest of the game. Is pretty unlikely. We'll try, though. Oh, yeah, with another creature. I now cannot think of any lines that get me out of it. Okay, sure. GG's. Alright, so we ended 2-3, but ultimately I feel pretty solid about the deck list. Let's take one last look at it here. So, at the end of the day, we've splashed blue for Skystrike Officer as well as Harbin. Generally speaking, Harbin feels medium to me. Like, it's really cool to have another creature that flies for matchups like Delver, where, like, that is very relevant. But it's hard to get 5 or more soldiers attacking, while that still matters. So, for example, a lot of times, like, I would play something like a preeminent captain and one other creature get ahead on board, and my opponent just concedes while I have like 3 soldiers. Or by the time that I was getting to Myrel and Myrel actually gets an attack off, like either my opponent just kind of conceded on the spot, or like the game was still going, Myrel got removed or whatever. There was the one game versus Elves where like this could have made a difference, but it wasn't the ability that would have made the difference, it was the fact that it was just literally a flyer. I do really like Skystrike Officer, though. Like, it is a 2/3 flyer that gives you some card draw and gives you extra tokens, which are particularly good with Valiant Veteran. Like, this card gets a huge thumbs up from me. I think if you're splashing blue, this is still absolutely worth playing, but I don't think this is a reason to splash blue, if that makes sense. Generally speaking, Captain of the Watch was the thing that I was boarding out every round, and Cathar Commando was in the same boat. Like, I wanted some main deck artifact hate, because I wanted another 2-drop soldier in here to just make sure I had more early plays, because like I'm taking Chalice of the Void out of the deck, which is a real kind of early game cost. Cathar Commando, like, maybe isn't it. Like, maybe I play some game 1 Swords to Plowshares or something like that. Or maybe I sneak an enlistment officer or 2 back into the deck list. But overall, this deck was solid. But ultimately, I think like, this is competing with the initiative, and while we didn't play against the initiative today, I imagine, like, they are just more aggressive and more consistent than us. So I don't know that I want to be picking up and playing this deck a whole lot, but if you're, if you already own the cards for soldiers, maybe pick up some fortified beachheads and try this configuration out. It was a lot of fun to play. Ooh, also that round against POW 22. What a gem. Like, it showed that this deck can hang in the long game, which is something that I wasn't really expecting. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. It helps out a lot. I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya.